Thank you for listening to the Following Films podcast. I'm Chris Maynard. Today I'm really excited to have cinematographer Tommy Maddox-Upshaw on the show. You probably know him from his work on Snowfall, Straight Outta Compton, and a bunch of other incredible projects. Today we're talking about his newest film, Opus, and how he approached the look and feel of it, what it was like putting it together, and just his overall process behind the camera. It's a great conversation. Let's jump right in. Hey, Tommy.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good, man. Good. Just trying to just keep it together for the weekend because I'm in the middle of a prep for another show. So,
it doesn't slow down.
And I'm very grateful that it really hasn't slowed down considering the state of affairs of just like, of Hollywood and, LA, what happened. And, just one of those things, How you doing?
I'm doing great, especially getting to chat with you after seeing this film, because I think we're probably right about the same hair, judging by our facial hair. We both got the same amount of gray, and I'm 48. So,
we're around
okay.
47.
So,
yeah.
I grew up with video stores, and we're like kind of that last generation first and last generation where it was there our whole lives almost. And when you'd go to like a cool independent mom and pop shop, there would be that recommended by section, and Opus would absolutely have been on my recommended wall. This is that kind of thing that you'd want to turn people on to. You want to have conversations about it because it's such a smart film, but it's so much fun. Also, it has a lot on its mind, but it goes down smooth. So could you talk a little bit about what drew you to this project and wanting to work on it?
Oh man, I think it was immediately the witty nature of the script. Mark Anthony Green and I kind of clicked immediately from like the first or second meeting, and the social political messages that are in the script that are just layered in there from the opening where she's totally dismissed as this Black woman in this corporate space.
Yeah.
And then like it's layered all throughout it, like, the misogynistic boss, and then the commentary about her trying to find her place in the world. All these different layers is exactly stuff that I love, you know what I mean? And he and I talked everything from like, Wild Wild Country to like, Silence of the Lambs to, to even like discussing, elements of like the A24 catalog of certain things that makes A24 such an appealing studio to watch what they do. Like, even if everything isn't perfect, it still is one of those things that it's a great freaking company that finds interesting scripts and do not serve. And this was one of them. I bit like it was during the strike. I got the script. He and I talked. He wrote the script, so we would meet up in downtown LA and we would just talk. And we talked most days of the week. Once I was hired, and we just took our time with things. And as the strike persisted on, but it was just like, what are the layers at certain points? So as we figured out what the beats were, I would talk about a phase one, which is the cool corporate world that's kind of in this linear movement, almost one of my favorite films, The Game. And you look at the tableau shots, the cool,
so good,
sharp, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, but when you watch it in the setup, you realize even in this movie, we played with tableaus, and then there was cool tones, no flares, just like, we just kind of told her story. You know what I mean? In the corporate New York setting. And then once she travels and gets off the plane and the bus, then the textures start to change because emotionally she starts to change, and we're trying to figure out why the hell she, of all people, is here in New Mexico-ish area, and then we change the palette into this warm, inviting space, right?
And that's when it gets dangerous, though, is when and it's like this thing that puts you off. It's great. I loved that. It's fantastic.
Exactly. And then it's like when she really starts to get pivy to things, then that warm palette has different colors in the undertones and the secondary colors and the shadows that she's starting to realize things are getting twisted.
Yeah.
And then we really kind of lay that third phase of it all with the underlying secondary tones of like the blues and the cyans and all that, mixed with the big flares of the warm palette of what was established when she arrived, and we like ride that for a while. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we're following the emotional beats. If you watch the movie of Ariel's character, of Io's character, and then we just like, what were those movies? What were those things that we liked from other movies and the photographs and music? And we will find different elements like, yeah, that's the texture, that's the tone. Like, what is that warm invite? What's another movie with the warm, inviting feel that really encapsulated you, even though it kind of took a turn? Look at something like Almost Famous, right?
Oh, sure.
He's
Yeah.
a young naivete writer. He's hanging out with all these stars he admires, and then he realizes, like, who is Mandy
Yeah.
Levine? Like, I need to get home. It's like one of these things. And Ariel kind of has the same thing. She's kind of like, I'm a writer, but what am I experiencing? And like, why was I chosen? And what the fuck is going on? Like, you know what I mean? It's like elements like that and the visual language of those like type of movies and those palettes, and really to like he and I agreeing to what is the arc in the movie. And then when we come back, you notice by the end, when we go to the prison, things get really kind of neutral. And you realize what the setup was, right?
Yep.
It was like what the orchestration is. And then if you notice at the very end of the movie, the freaking the levelist colors come back.
Yep.
At the very, very end.
Well, they were
without her realizing it until she sees when she goes to the newscast.
Well, without giving it away.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Because it recontextualizes everything. And so the world, you think that you've entered a different world, but you've actually been you were in that world the whole time. You just didn't know it. And so without giving that away, I guess, and you're just tying that together. And that's what I adore about this, because it's something that demands a second viewing, because it's really smart that you go back and you're kind of doing the math in your head and you're thinking, okay, wait, what did this moment mean when I was seeing it? Because you make assumptions about where people stood in that moment, and you go, oh, well, I guess this was off camera. I thought something else was going on. And it's so well constructed that I can't wait to go see this again. So it'll be one of those things that I watch it with my wife, watching her the whole time that we watch it, I'm sure.
Yeah. My it's one of those things that it's a great, smart, it's fun, and it's funny. It doesn't take itself so seriously. That was the other thing that really
but it's so smart. It could have gotten on a soapbox, and it never does. It never does, which is great.
Exactly. And that's where the Mark Anthony and his choice of John Malkovich and these other supporting characters, but John is a master, what I mean? And it's like, and the things he says to the people when things go awry is kind of like one of those things that, like, he was perfect.
Yeah.
He was perfect for what the movie needed. So then there's a pressure release valve, like, even though something crazy is going on, he's a pressure release valve that works. Like, it really works. It's not him. I don't want to name a show. Another show came up in a discussion, a TV show where the season 2 took itself way too seriously, and it just didn't work. But it's kind of like John. He never took himself fully serious. When you even watch it, and even when you get to the end, like how he talks to her, and just like what he says, like all those things are what made me read the script in a single setting and say, oh man, I got to do this movie. Yeah. And then when I met Mark and he and I started vibing, I was like, I told my agent at the time, I was like, well, I had a great meeting. I hope it works out. I don't know, but we vibed really strong. And then he and I talked again, and it was like, he and I to this day talk a couple of times a week about other movies, about life. We had this great bond, and it's just like we had a good time making the movie. And the filmmakers around us, from my gaffer and Key Grip, Wayland, and the crew, and Hirsch, the camera operator. And it's like we had a good time making the movie because it came during the tail end of the strike. But it was just such a good vibe on set, making such a crazy movie, that this experience is one of my best I've ever had. And it's not that big of a movie. Like, we shot in 18, 19 days.
Oh, wow.
And, we shot it, one set of lenses, one zoom, And Alex Lim, my first AC, and the crew, like they all did a great job in terms of like, everyone just bought into what it was. No one ever, even what I'm trying to get to is that the filmmakers ourselves realized it was a small movie. We all signed on for it, and people showed up and did their best. And we had a good time seeing each other, no matter the inclement weather. One day got to 7 degrees Fahrenheit at call. The monitor stopped working. We had to shoot. It did it again that one night. We got down to like 8 degrees. And as challenging as it was a good time, man. Like seriously. And that makes it it's not always it doesn't always happen this way, but this time it did. It's like, it's a fun movie. It's a smart movie.
Yeah.
It's great actors. Right after we freaking wrapped, got nominated for a Golden Globe and Emmy.
Yeah.
And she was nothing but a darling. She, like everybody, Steph and everybody else in the cast. I mean, it's just like Juliette Lewis. They were just fun, and it was a good time, and everybody brought a great attitude to making this small movie. And I love this movie. I've loved it since I read it. I loved it shooting it, and when I watched all the cuts of it as I was getting ready to color correct it with Mitch Paulson at a picture shop, we had a good time. Like, Mitch is one of the best colorists in the world. He did like Blade Runner, Skyfall, all these things. He even signed on to do this movie just because it was like the script was interesting, and he was like, yeah, why not? But the script is really fun. And when he watches, like, it's a fun movie, man. Like,
oh yeah.
While he's doing Roger's next movie, like to think he even signed up for it because the script was so good. And the editor, Ernie's freaking blast. I used to sit in the edit bay with Mark and Ernie, the editor, just because we all vibed, man. It was a good time.
And that's not the case on every project where people get. I mean, it's and there's this thing that used to exist where people thought that you had to have this stressful, horrible experience to make good art. It's just not the case. Life's too short to work with assholes. Like, you can work with good people and make good art. It is possible. You just have to, and I love how this film actually got the music right. I know that's not your department, but I do. There's parts that you had to. Did you have the music in advance? Because there's stuff that you're shooting to music at time, or at least it feels like it was structured.
Yeah, a couple of pieces.
Okay.
Yeah. Mark did that with The Dream, and then also what's his name? Niles. Freaking, this guy is one of the biggest songwriters. Hold on a second. There's no way I'm going to forget. Like, he and I, this guy shaped me and your freaking childhood. Hold on a second. Hold on, let me pull it up.
I should have had that researched. That's bad on my end for not.
Hold on. Yeah, wait till you. Nile Rodgers.
Nile Rodgers. Why do I know
Nile
that
Rodgers? Like, look him up. He wrote for Bowie. He wrote for a ton of R&B people, but he wrote for every genre. I mean, you ever heard of I'm Happy? He's one of the writers on that.
Holy shit, he did The Freak?
Yeah. He's the writer of that, man. Yeah. That's who did the music.
Damn. Okay. Yeah. Jesus,
yeah, I mean,
he's worked with everybody.
Everybody, every genre.
Wow. Okay.
It doesn't get much better than that for your first time around on a movie, bro.
Well, and that explains why the music it actually feels like legitimate pop music. A lot of times you'll see a film where it's centered around this masterwork of art, or this piece of music or something, and you watch and you go, I don't know, not really. It kind of can be a thing that pushes you out, but it actually works. You can buy into it that this would be, this legendary artist making this stuff. So it makes sense. And if you didn't get that right, I think that you would probably take the quality of the film down like a full peg, but it absolutely got that right here, man.
No, they did. They recorded some of the songs before we like went into principal photography. So yeah, Mark had a whole plan. He executed, I feel, what he set out to do. And, Nile Rodgers and having John Malkovich sing the songs. It's John singing.
That's him actually singing the stuff?
Yeah, that's Malkovich.
Really?
It's Malkovich singing. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's just one of those things, man. Like, all the elements. It's an interesting movie that I will forever cherish because, it was at the right time. It was made at the right time when it was supposed to be. We wish the strikes ended earlier, so then we could have gotten to some of these locations when it was like a bit warmer and more foliage was out.
Sure.
And Mitch Paulson really helped out in terms of bringing back a level of saturation and color into the frame, even though with our approach that we had going on. But yeah, it's an interesting, fun movie that I think people will revisit and be like, this movie is fun because it doesn't take itself so serious, but there's so many messages in there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, what is the press? Like, what is like, how do they read? And he's a writer. He used to write for.
Yeah. He's a journalist. He's a former journalist. Yeah.
So it's like a commentary on like what he used to do.
Well,
and
but not. And there's this element of that. I think it's almost pointing the finger at us to some degree as the audience, because we're all guilty of being manipulated, and it's something that we all go down a trap. And it's not. I don't think this is a negative film about journalism per se. Mm-hmm. I think that it humanizes that. In fact, I think this is very pro journalist, the film and its take on it. But it is something that it's more about the divisiveness that we have right now. And
exactly.
I wish this film wasn't as salient as it is, but unfortunately, this is one of those films that is wildly relevant at this moment. And it was not as relevant today as when you started this project, but goddamn.
Now, Jesus, man. Yeah, just leave that there on the table.
Yeah.
But it is definitely, but that's a hats off to Mark. Like, he just followed the energy of what was appropriate at the time. And we made this movie. Like he totally was great. He just, I have such a good time with him, and, Mark and I have made this bond over this movie, but it was just like, we did what we could with the resources we had. And I really love the emotional arc of Io's character, Ariel. And then it's just like, I just love it, man. I don't know what else to say. It's like,
well, you have a first-time filmmaker, and a lot of times I love first-time filmmakers because oftentimes it feels like they don't leave anything on the table, and they might not ever get another at bat. And this is something they've worked their whole lives for, and they're going to put everything they've ever thought of in this. And I feel like this is a filmmaker who has a lot more to say, but I feel like he absolutely did not leave anything on the table when this was said and done, that he put everything in here that he could. And it's just so exciting. And it's so refreshing. This is like a palate cleanser for 2025 that I needed right now. I left this. I just was invigorated. I want to share this. I want to talk about this. And this is one of those movies that it's so fun to get into. And it's at that point, I'm looking forward to a month from now, once everybody has seen it and we can really start breaking this thing down. Cause right now it's just a little too new, but this is going to be one that people are going to talk about for years to come. You got something that's going to last, I think, here.
Yeah, I feel that way as well. And, when we talk about the people, and I think to your point, everybody, right? Like everybody's kind of the levelist in terms of the bigger scope is what, Mark is talking about when you talk about celebrity, when you talk about, what do you believe and like, what do you follow along? It's like, there's so many different layers to it. And all the while you go for the ride. Like, I really love the pacing of the movie. And I really, agree with you that it is something that everybody can find elements like, oh my God, like, how are we not all a part of it, right?
Yeah.
So when we talked about Wild Wild Country, you talk about Jim Jones, you talk about all these things where regular people went for the ride in real life. And like, why did they go for the ride? It becomes one of those interesting examinations of it all. And it was a heaven's gate.
Yeah.
Like and the list goes on. And it's like people they want to be attached to something, and then they want to be attached to a guru of some sort. And then what happens with that? And then what's everyone's perspective from the outside looking in? And then who's better than the other? Like, how different are you than the people that did follow it all? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where the genius of this movie comes in. And that's where you have somebody like Malkovich, who's kind of like commenting on it all, is just amazing. The performance in there, I loved it. I mean, John can't say enough about him. Can't say enough about Malkovich.
He's almost trying on a little bit of like a Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder thing here to some degree, as
Mm-hmm.
far as like a larger vision that he had in this thing. But ultimately, there's very few people who could have played this that he's still charming in the film, as
Mm-hmm.
big and broad and as out there as he goes. There's still something about him that is utterly charismatic that you're like, yeah, I kind of get it. I could see why people would be drawn into this guy's world. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a mixture of like how many different like pop singers when you look at what type of music that they end up making him play, but then also it's like you said, I think the word is charisma,
Yeah.
the juice that he has, and the people, the attractive folks, and how he makes people feel, and you know what I mean. And his slow burn is what makes it masterful. And and Io responding to that slow burn and matching him every time she gets on the screen. Like there's not a moment that you don't believe that she's just a regular young black female professional in the context of this. Like she's never like really aloof. Like she's taking
No.
notes from the jump. She's a professional. Like she's not like some naivete. She's like, something don't smell right. I'm not exactly sure, but she's like, I'm gonna make a note of that. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she's on her P's and Q's. She has great ideas. It's just a matter of having that life experience and what does that mean in terms of like her being viewed by the rest of the world. Like, but it was just one of those things that she matched. I think, I don't think John outshined her ever.
No.
Murray Bartlett was hilarious in this freaking movie.
Yeah.
Murray is great. That's the
Yes.
boss who's the jerk. And this guy is the sweetest guy. He's so great. And he always came prepared. And it was just so much fun to work with them. And then his reaction when stuff goes sideways and who he was, I thought was freaking great. I love shooting that scene, when things kind of explode with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like it was just fun, man. And Amber, she doesn't even say much in this movie, and then yet you see what happens when her character turns on.
But she carries so much power in quiet moments. But then when she explodes, it's always there underneath the surface. You can just feel that in her, just waiting to come out, and it's so good. But Io
Right.
has like this almost thankless role of the audience. She's our point of view through this whole thing. She has to ground this thing because everything goes so big around her that if you don't get that performance right, the movie doesn't work. It's all on her shoulders, really. I think that everybody is acting in support of her performance, but it is
Yep.
if you don't get that casting right, this movie doesn't work, in my opinion, personally, because she's the heart of the thing. It has to. I mean, she's this young woman that's ambitious, and she has flaws for sure that we all have when we're in our 20s, and you can see
Yep.
that, but it is something that is so utterly relatable that I think that and it's important to have that if you agree with her, disagree with her, if you see whatever your thoughts on journalism happen to be, I think that seeing this woman in this portrayal, it's really helpful because, like you said, it's not a movie that takes itself seriously, but it has a very serious message about the other, about
Yeah.
the person that you think is your enemy. And I think that that's, if you think the journalists are your enemy, it's not the case. So, they can have bad ideas, but they are not your enemy. So, and I think
Right.
that she has an important role in the film, but she does a phenomenal job.
Yeah. I mean, you understand who she is. Like we as an audience really understand who she is. She's because to your point, she's taking us for the ride. Like I said, that's why when she's taking those notes, you're kind of thinking the same thing when people showed up, like creepy bald head.
Yeah. Oh, the notes are great, man.
Right. And it's because it's that voice in your own head when you're watching, like, who's the quintessential bald head cult dude? Like, and it's kind of like that's on the nose, but it's like she's like, yeah, it is on the nose. And it's like written for you to see. You know what I mean? And you're like, and then the whole thing about the first meal, and you're thinking, oh my god, and then you're thinking the same. And then when
Yeah.
the way we captured it and whatnot, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what she's thinking. Exactly what you're thinking.
Yep.
And I think that Mark Anthony and Io did a great job of really, making sure the audience understood, was in her seat, and she drove the bus for us, and everybody felt all the bumps along the ride to school. You know what I mean? Like get on that school bus and the bus bunks around. It's like, and I was the freaking driver, and she, and she did a great job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All
Well,
the while, Malkovich is like banging on the door. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things that it was fun, man. It was really fun, and she held the movie and she carried it as a lead. I thought she knocked it out the park. Like
yeah,
I really do.
she's the real deal. There's no doubt about it. She's phenomenal here, and it's the without her commentary, without that part of it, it's so smart. It would the elements, the way that you present the dinner, those kinds of things. You could be like, well, this is pretentious dribble. You think I'm not going
Yeah,
to see? I see what you're trying to do, but because she's the one calling it out for what it is, it's no. This isn't subtle. We all see the same thing that you see, which is
exactly.
just phenomenal. It's that little layer of it that I think is missing in a lot of films like this. But yeah, I really am excited to see, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday start getting people's feedback on this. I know that this is a really bold, big swing, and I
Mhm.
think that it could be a divisive film, but it's one that I highly, highly recommend to people because I can't think of a better time at the movies than this one. This is just I had so much fun with this.
Yeah, and rightfully so, and I appreciate that, Chris. And I hope other people share your commentary about the movie and its wittiness, and it's a great movie in my opinion.
I
And
agree.
I had a great time making it, and it's just like the layers I think are worth the conversation afterwards. There's so many different layers. There's so many different funny moments. There's so many different if you watch it again, you'll see the visual art that we talked about and Mark and I crafted together, and it's all very deliberate.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I tell a lot of young filmmakers, it doesn't cost much to have a deliberate intention
No.
when you make a project. You just have to know the emotional arc of who's telling the story and really just go for the opportunities. And you don't need a lot of money. You just need to have real conversations about, your own emotional response as an artist who's contributing to a movie like this, you know what I mean? Or to any project that you do. And that's the fun stuff. That's why, we play in the sandbox in this life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And one last thing before I let you go, I would be
Okay.
remiss not to mention the Billie Holiday puppet show. I think could have been its own film. Like there's a short
Right.
film within the movie that exists in this thing, and that talk about things working on multiple layers because there's truth and depth to it, but there's just I was laughing out loud at that. It just
Hell yeah.
it's so good, but it's like again, it's those things. If you know if you know Billie Holiday's story, there is
Yep.
there's a lot of truth and relevance in that, and it's the same thing with if you know the story of Jonestown. Yes, there's things that it's talking about, and these are very serious subjects, but it's handling it in a way that makes it palatable. And yeah, I think that there could very well be people that'll see this film that'll be, well, I need to find out about these other things because I really don't know about. I could. Do 20-year-olds still know who Billie Holiday is at this point? Or I hope
Right.
so.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I do too. I mean, she's an American icon. She's a global icon in terms of
Yes.
music and even just her story. But one of my favorite parts of the movie is at the end of the puppet show and when John takes over. That whole thing when he
Uh-huh.
when we were shooting that shit, I was screaming, bro.
Was
We were
that
like,
is
cut
that
your
what he
off
was
with John.
supposed to
I mean,
do?
John,
Was that him just in making that up?
yeah,
Or is that okay?
because we had the camera. Should I talk about the shot? Should I talk about it?
We'll put a spoiler warning here. If I think
Okay.
you go watch the movie, love it. But if you but come back, pause. This will be right at the end. Come back if you haven't
When
seen it.
we put the camera to just see John at one point on the little stage, right? We had the Sony Rialto. We break apart the camera, we slapped it down, and we framed it up so we could see John reacting to the puppet show with everybody else. And then we had him come up, and he was supposed to, I think, just like do an over the shoulder shot, kind of like
Mhm.
looking at her. And then he went and grabbed the microphone. He starts talking like, and he goes to this whole rant, and it was just like, oh my god. He said, "That's the first fucking question you asked me after 20 years." And then, like, I was just dying. But he knew to play the camera. He was a profile. We had this thing, and I love that moment. Every time I see it, I just like that shit is great because he's so conscious of like seeing the people past him and
Yeah.
just the rant itself and his his cadence is awesome. And when you watch it again, just like no, like John kind of like freaked it. Mark Anthony kind of wanted, but it was just like one of those moments that you see like, oh, this worked. We only had to do it a couple of times. Like, oh my God, it was so much fun. That's one of my favorite. The Billie Holiday smoking, you see a little smoke.
Dude, it's so good. It's
As a
so
tear.
good. the the puppet design is just so horribly wonderful. I love it. It's so
crazy.
It's insane. In a movie. I mean, like literally, there is I think this is crazier than, because we're in spoiler area. This is crazier than the headless moment in this movie. What they do with that, I think this is more nuts.
It definitely It definitely is. And it's a great moment. I think you're right. The puppet show, when I read it, I was like, huh? And then when we start to see the concept drawings for the puppets, it's like the guy who made it loved it so much that he wanted to like keep the puppets. He was like, I think it was like a weird thing. It was like, he was like, I love these things. Like I need them back. And I think it was like a kind of like a back and forth, like, no, like we bought them from you. Like it was like something weird happened because they were so great.
Yeah.
I mean, look at them, like, and it does a great pause within the movie of, of making this movie interesting, man. It makes it its own thing. I think it has its own voice. It's different from the catalog, I feel, of A24.
Oh,
and
for
I
sure.
think there's just really, it's a fun time. Anyone wants to see something fun, and it moves, right?
This is an easy sit. This goes by quick. It flies by. This is there's no fat on this thing. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It is in, it's out, and done. And it's not a look, if your movie's 3.5 hours long and you have something to say, and that's how, I don't care. I watch Casino, and that thing feels like it's 20 minutes to me. It just the time disappears when I watch Goodfellas. There's certain movies that are 3 hours long. I don't care. But this is one that there's no non-essential moments here. And yeah, it's well edited.
You know what? It's funny. I had this discussion. I'm trying to look for it. There's somebody I need to give a shout out to who I keep freaking forget and on like when I talk. But literally, I said that about, there was a 3-hour movie this year in the Academy Awards. Right? and when I talk to people about it, I go, it's funny. I've watched Lawrence of Arabia, I don't know how many times, and that's 3 hours and like 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I have no problem. I even like Dr. Zhivago. That's 3 hours and like 30 minutes with an intermission. And I don't feel it. And I've watched these movies. I've watched them both printed in a movie theater. But of course, I wasn't alive when they both came out. And I've watched them both on Blu-ray and on like AMC or T. And it's like the time flies by.
We both watched them probably on a VHS tape on a 20-inch screen in horrible conditions, and it still would grab me. I didn't see either. The first time I saw Lawrence of Arabia, it wasn't projected. The first time I saw The Great Escape was not projected.
Exactly.
But then you go see these, big epic films like that, and they earn it. You have to earn 3 hours to me.
Exactly. And to be able to revisit it is a great thing. That's a testament to a movie, right? It's like, this movie, I hope, will be revisited by people like, like those other movies we just talked about. It's like, but like you said, it flies by. Like, for anyone to watch this movie, you're not like, oh my God, it's dragging. It's like, no, it's bam, bam, bam. We give you the rules really kind of early, and everything that is said, all comes back if you watch the movie. Like everything that's given in the first like 15 minutes, really all is revisited, and you see why we said what we said, and we showed you who we showed you, and it works out. Like like I said, I think Ernie freaking did a great job on this movie as an editor.
I think your film, when I thought of it, I thought of a book more than anything else. That I thought of Breakfast of Champions. It's something that was socially relevant when it was written, but it's something that you can revisit that thing every 10 years. And it's going to be a different book because it's something that it's satire, but it's poignant and thoughtful and funny. And there's not an extra word in that thing that doesn't need to be there. It's as bare bones as a novel can be, but it's something that you can find new, it's a different book every time you read it. And I think this will be a film that the meaning of it will change 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And I think this is one that I want my 14-year-old son to watch this movie. I really do want him to see it. And I want to talk to him about this movie. And then I want him to share this with his friends and see what they think about it. And which is, this is the reason I'm a movie guy first and foremost. It's because of stuff like this. So
that's the way I felt when I read it. You know what I mean? I felt exactly the same. I was like, this is why I do movies. It's like, this is why people who sometimes just work in like certain like markets of like indie movies, they do it because the stories are different and it just keeps fueling them to a certain extent. And having the opportunity for who brought the movie to me, my agent at the time, Ari Brown and Pete Franciosa, that when they brought this to me, I was like, I got to do this movie. And they're like, yeah, you know, you're not going to make any money. I was like, I don't care. Like, this is why I make movies. This is like what I was watching as a kid and like, you know, and getting excited about stuff and stuff that challenged me, and to be able to revisit as an adult. So a movie like this, when you see it when you're 15 and whatnot, like it becomes one of those things. I'm going to, you know, have my daughter watch it. I'm be very curious to see, because she and her friends like the other movies. And I'm just kind of like very curious to see what she thinks, and then like revisit it years later. I mean, she's just kind of now getting conscious to the fact that her dad makes movies and TV shows. So, and it's cool. It's like, I understand. She's like, it's kind of like what her dad like goes away and makes stuff and comes back. What are they? She probably couldn't really tell you. She's just like,
right.
You know, it is what it is. But I have to give a shout out to Trevor, my key grip, and Waylon, my gaffer on this job, because these two guys really help lead the troops in terms of grip and lighting to like do some things that, like, you know, they both work on really big stuff. They happen to both be available, but they were nothing but team players, and they were just like really great humans on set. And, you know, and my ACs and Alex Lim and all the New Mexico crew are nothing but like good people to me to make this wacky movie for like next to no money. But, you know, it came at a time when everyone needed to work, but at the same time, it was a fun project that, you know, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would love to work with Mark Anthony again. You know, who knows what the future will bring. And, you know, hopefully it's something just as poignant. I mean, he worked this film out at the Sundance Labs. I'm almost positive, like he would.
Yeah, he did.
And I think that was like, you know, I think that was a blessing to him, because this, as a first-time filmmaker, is a great movie, in my opinion.
Oh,
you know, we'll see what other people think,
you don't even have to use it as the caveat for it. This could be somebody's 30th film. You know, this is just a great movie. I just had a blast with this thing. And I'm a greedy American consumer. I want more. So I want you guys to work together again. I love this. It's that the next in me that's like, okay, what's next? I'm ready. Let's do this. I'm ready to see whatever you guys have coming up next. Because I love this thing, man. This is that. There, every once in a while, I get pretty frustrated with what I do, but then something like this, it's just a spike in the arm. It's that shot that I needed that just re-energizes me and just makes me fall in love with movies all over again. So thank you for that, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. Great. Thank you so much, Chris. I mean, it means a lot that, you know, that you're responding this way to something that was a fun, blessing labor of love, and you know, just a good time. Like thank you, seriously. Thank you so much. And, you know, we'll see what else Mark has up his sleeve, because he always has something up his sleeve. Like, he's a smart guy, and he will definitely have something that he'll be pitching soon.
There's no way this is the last from him. So we're going to have more. I'm looking forward to it. But thank you again for taking time out of your Saturday, especially in the middle of the schedule and everything. And I appreciate it. Congratulations, man, on something truly special.
Thanks a lot.
All right. It's a pleasure to meet you. Hopefully I'll get to chat with you on the next one, man.
Definitely. Peace.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hush that thought, but it never goes far. It ain't just He's really